2 p.m. for you. It's nice. Yeah, yeah, the trouble with time zones. Like, apparently, at least according to YouTube analytics, I have, like, there's, a not insubstantial number of people watch my videos in Brazil and a bunch in the Philippines. And let me tell you, it's hard to find a time zone that works for all of them. Can you talk about the Viego and Akshan followers too? Yes, we'll be doing that at the end of the stream. Yeah, Brazil, Turkey. Like, most of my viewers are in the United States, then the UK, Germany, like a bunch of European nations, and then Brazil and the Philippines. Like, they're the next 2 biggest markets for some reason. Who knows? I have no idea why. It's like a half of 1% or something, but it's, you know, still. Anyway, let's move on to Dr. S-Langer. And it's very important that you say S-Langer, because if you just pronounce it too quickly without very carefully pronouncing it S-Langer, you might accidentally pronounce it Asslanger. Asslanger. And you don't want to say Asslanger, because he's called S-Langer, not Asslanger. Dr. Asslanger. So, Dr. S-Langer here is basically the dude who apparently came up with the process for reviving soldiers on the battlefield. Like, they had already revived Scion, like, Vladimir and his blood mages had figured out how to do it with Scion, but this dude, apparently, was the guy who figured out how to revive soldiers on the battlefield and send them back into battle. And so, that's basically him practicing his craft. So the storyline behind these cards, and the Crit has already done a video about it, the storyline behind all of these cards is that the Lady of Blood is organizing this raid on a Demacian outpost in order to demonstrate the power of her Grey Legion, of using these undead soldiers as shock troops in Noxian conquest. Like, so this is all like a test run for her, and Esslanger is there to sort of demonstrate his powers and like revive the soldiers on the battlefield and send them back into combat whenever possible. Yeah, some casual necromancy to spice up your army. Basically, yeah, basically. And what we're seeing here is him doing the thing, where he's using blood magic to infuse the corpse with some semblance of life again. But then, as is explained in one of the spell cards somewhere, I can't remember what it's called. Okay, one of the spell cards... Yeah, there it is, Salt and Stitches. One of the spell cards here, like, explains that, like, besides just infusing magic into them is not enough. Like, with magic, you can revive them. Like, they'll sort of become alive again, but they will not fight. Because, like, once they are brought back to life, they're just kind of passive and uninterested in doing anything. So what they do is they rub iodine and salt into their wounds just to cause them immense suffering and pain, and like inject iodine and salt into their systems just to make them suffer, so that pain and that suffering will bring them back to a state of enragement, so that you can send them against your enemies again. Oh, Risen Reckoner. Yes, this is the Risen Reckoner who mentions it specifically. Like, so this is a cruel act. Like, it's not... when you bring these people back, they're not brought back from the dead. Like, it's not like a battlefield revival. You're just bringing their corpses back to life and torturing them in order to force them to fight. So, you know, that's what makes the Reborn Grenadier. That's what makes him special, is that he's, like, pretty much one of the only of members of the Grey Legion who seems excited to be back to life and do more fighting, because apparently he was just that crazy in life. All the other zombies are like, they don't actually want to do anything, but they're being forced to it with suffering. Which, again, you know, hey, maybe Noxes aren't necessarily the good guys. Certainly the Black Rose aren't. But yeah, that's basically the League of Legends version of necromancy outside of stuff like the Shadow Isles, is this stuff right here. Hemomancy, as it were. Yeah, so composition of the image itself. So we have two faces visible here. We have Eslanger himself doing his magic and like the light of the red magic reflected off his glasses, and then we have this Noxian soldier witnessing what's being done to his former compatriot and being a little bit freaked out about it. Like he's clearly not like, oh god, this is like, oh, this is a little too weird for me. As they're holding the body down, as Eslanger is inflicting torture on it, basically. Like he's bringing it back to life and inflicting pain on it. So he needs someone to hold it down so he can finish doing his thing and torment this corpse into fighting again. So we have two main characters. The main character, of course, is Dr. Eslanger himself, who's doing the thing. And this is sort of a storytelling thing. When you want a character to be the main character of an image, make the other characters do something in service to the main character. So these characters are just helping him hold down a body that he's clearly doing something to. Like, they're clearly helping him do a thing, and that's what makes him the main character of the image and not this poor guy over here who's having a negative reaction to the thing that's going on. And then we have the Kelp Maidens, a bit of a jarring jump in aesthetics, from like Noxus torturing the dead on battlefields to these adorable little creatures sitting around having a sing-song about some stuff. Dun, da, 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 da. Speaking of Vengars, by the way, this is his music. Tiny masterpiece of evil. Oh, it's so good. Just sitting around having a sing-song, and so you can see the usual things. These characters are more rendered than the conchologist in the background. They are less washed out, they're more saturated, they are clearly highlighted against their backgrounds. You can see most of their backdrop is like clear sky or a little bit of the water surface. It's like those are all the compositional elements that makes them the main characters, and then they're sitting on a raised like bit of the image. Conchologist's just here to study and be pranked. Yeah, Marcelo, that's basically his role, the poor guy. I do like the detail of the little crab that's like conducting. Basically like doing a little bit of a Sebastian from the Little Mermaid thing, just conducting the Kelp Maidens as they sing. Now, they're supposed to be kelp, right? Like, they're supposed to be seaweed, and you can kind of see that in like the way the hands are constructed, the way like their feet are sort of... They look a little bit sort of like seaweed-ish. I think they could have gone harder on that. Like, instead of like the hair looking like tentacles, they could have made that look more like seaweed, like actual sort of flat plant material or something, which it didn't quite do, which, I don't know. But yeah, not a lot to say about this one. I think it speaks for itself, mostly. Here's another lovely couple of characters. I believe these are Yordles. Like, I'm not 100% sure because, like, they look a little bit more like mice people. I think they're Yordles because it's a Bandle City Targon card. But yeah, so they've made this telescope which has eyes and now has like a will of its own, is like running around and doing stuff. Yeah, Fey mice. Oh, they're Fey. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Little fairy creatures. So again, we're working with a Dutch angle here, and again, that's a compositional thing as well as a thing about the vibe, because what we want from the composition, clearly, you can see that they wanted to have this tall tower structure in the background with these portraits of venerated researchers or whatever in the background, looking down over the proceedings. And then also, of course, the vibe of, like, things being off balance. This is a scene of chaos. This is a scene of this telescope coming to life and running off on its own to do stuff. Yeah, the telescope is the character. It's easy not to be able to see that. Like, you can kind of see it here when you sort of see the eyes and that, like, this thing is acting essentially as a mouth or a long nose or a snout or something. But once you're looking at this picture, like, you're more tempted to see this as the main character, right? Like, because, yeah, the telescope has eyes. It has kind of a face, sort of Wall-E face, robot face kind of thing going on, but this is clearly more of a character in the image, sort of this poor little creature's being dragged around by this escaping telescope. We've got a magical cat, so surely there are magical mice too. Yeah, like it's probably pretty much where it's at. Outside of that, not a lot to say about this composition. Like, I do love the detail that it's like kicking aside this other creature over here, like just kicking us, like, get out of my way, nerd! I'm going on adventures. But yeah, just a perfectly lovely little illustration, frankly. Not much to say about it, I don't think. Loping. More like eloping. Whereas the Marais songstress, here we've got some things to say. So, Nami, for a very long time, was basically our only Mirai. Like, the only Vestaya, the only sort of image we have of Vestaya from the underwater tribes. Then we got the... All the way back in Foundations, we got the one dude. Let's see if we can find him. What the hell's he called? Nope. Followers, units only. Common, rare. I think he's a rare. Where is he? He's somewhere. Riverfolk, yes. Yeah, we got the River Shaper. This guy. He was, like, literally the first other Mirai we had ever seen in the lore. And he's not a Mirai from Nami's tribe specifically, I believe. I believe he's like a river Mirai, rather than one of the from the deep ocean, like what Nami is from. I need to unfilter all of this again. And go and find, not the Abyssal Guard, but the, I went too far. There, the Marais songstress. And now, finally, we have some more examples of what Nami's undersea people look like. And just by existing, like, they make Nami a better design. Because, like, my complaint with Nami was always that she's a very kind of basic character design. Like, she's a very basic sort of mermaid design. There's not really a lot to her. You could do a lot more to use the aesthetics of fish and sea creatures in order to create a more interesting and compelling character. And with a Mirai songstress and with, like, the other... things like, for example, the Mirai Warden, and as we discussed previously, the Abyssal Guard, they do a lot to expand, like, just the diversity of character design that's possible within the Vestaya, within the Mirai, which is just such a absolutely lovely thing. And yes, as we mentioned before, this one, the Mirai songstress and the Abyssal Guard, are both in a relationship with Nami. Like, this is Nami's boyfriend, and the songstress is Nami's girlfriend. And they're all in sort of a triad relationship with one another. Which is a lovely thing. But here, like, you can see we get this use of the fins. Like the fins of fish, like these long, sort of flowy, curly, almost like a dress-like shapes, all curling down along her tail. We get these sort of bioluminescent patches on her tail all along the thing, like lighting up in the dark. We get, like, this lovely use of translucency and color. Like, there's so much else going on this character than just, oh, hot lady with titty, which is the thing with Nami, is, like, a lot of her character design is just, she's just like a hot lady who's looking a little bit fish-ish on her base character design. Here, yeah, we have the titty, like, we have the sort of the basic mermaid shit, but then there's so much else going on top of that also. Which I really quite enjoy. Like, I like that there is that greater diversity of aesthetic, because, like, undersea aesthetics, fish, and, like, sea creatures, there's so many things you can do with them, and combine with a human shape to create interesting, cool, fantastic mermaids, which is, like, something that League of Legends has never done, and I've always been disappointed with that in the Vestaya, because they just, like, okay, you want to take animal aesthetics and combine them with human? Cool. So then why the fuck is the thing that you keep doing just, like, an ordinary-ass human person with, like, the minimal amount of animal features possible? Oh yeah, human but with a tail, human but with long ear, human but with... Here, we get, like, a much more even mix, where we have the human torso, human face, arms, but then everything else is much more elaborately constructed out of interesting fish pieces, which, like, yes, cool, great, love it. Anyway, compositionally, the tail itself creates this swooping, swirling line that draws us from, like, if we start looking at the image here, we'll get drawn to the Mirai herself, the songstress. And the songstress, you can see, like, these fish that are swirling around her. You can see the, like, the highlight, the light coming down from above, highlighting the area around her, behind her, giving her this scene of highlighting. So she's basically creating her own frame and her own stage. which is all, it all works very well. It makes the scene that she's in kind of indistinct. Like, is this Coral? Where is she? What's she doing? But it doesn't really matter because she's like this artiste giving this performance who's in the midst of her feelings, so it all works quite well. And then there's this fish right here, who, who seems to be very, very pleased. Like, very pleased with what's going on. I don't know if the people at Riot just didn't catch this one, or if it's some sort of in-joke, but there he is. He's having a good time. Just a happy fish. Then we have the Marais warden, and you want mermaids with thigh gap? I'll give you mermaids with thigh gap. So yeah, here's a mermaid where, again, this is this thing I talked about, like diversity of different designs, where we have a mermaid, but instead of just having the fishtail that all mermaids have, hey, fuck it, let's give her legs, but then no feet. She has legs, but she doesn't have any feet. Which is like, okay, cool, interesting. Like, again, it is a different thing that you can do with the idea of mixing sea creatures with human anatomy. Like, so, like, yeah, it's a little silly to have a mermaid with legs, but it's also interesting. It's also a different thing to do than you normally do. Now, I wish that this is a thing Legends of Runeterra has problems with. That's, like, her waist is thinner than her thigh. Like, just, her forearm is the same thickness as her waist here. And that's a little, it's like, if it was just for this character, that might be cool. Like, that might be interesting. That might be a different anatomy for the character. But as we know with Legends of Runeterra, unfortunately, this is like a thing that Legends of Runeterra likes to do, where they like having their female characters be incredibly thin just cuz. Just cuz, I don't know, because it's a sin to have internal organs or abs or whatever. It's a Legends of Runeterra aesthetic design problem that they really like to make their female characters very, very, very slim around the waist. Slimmer than is physically possible, and to the point where it's like, this is not stylization, this is something else. Like, this is some kind of obsession, this is some kind of weird, I don't know what the fuck it is, it's just weird. It's just weird. It's weird and unappealing, and I don't like it, because like, it just looks so off. Like, it looks like a mistake, right? Like, it looks like you drew it wrong. It doesn't look like a stylization, it doesn't look like a cool sort of visual idea to, like, differentiate the character from another. It just looks weird. And off-putting. And that's also going on here, where, like, her waist is like, oh boy. And if that was, like, a monster character design thing, that would be cool, but it's all of the fucking women all of the time in this game. Not all of them, but, like, a lot of them. It's something that they do over and over and over and over again, and it's tiresome, and I wish they wouldn't. But anyway, rest of the character design, excellent. Like, I love the hair. Like, this big sort of plume of sort of seaweed kelp-like hair that just kind of bursts from the back of her head. I like the little frills around, like, the crown of whatever bone or coral or whatever it is that's growing from her head. That's very cool. I like her face. Like, her face construction is very interesting and different, because, like, you can see the eyes are set a lot further apart than you would expect, and you have this sort of wedge-shaped nose that comes down from the top, creating, like, a really interesting shape language for the character themselves. Which is like, yeah, that's really cool. That works really well. You can see she has a companion up here who's sort of doing the same sort of thing. The swoop of the axe that she's swinging around also, like, that helps create this, like, you can see how the swoop of the axe here trails into the hair itself and into the edge of, like, this coral here, so you get this swoop creating this circular space in the middle, which means that she's, again, creating a frame for herself. Oh, hey, a bot. Give me a second. Like, creates this swoop and this frame for the character to occupy in the center, which I think is quite nice. It's quite nicely done. So yeah, I like the split leg mermaid thing where, like, where each leg ends up in a tail on its own. Like, that seems like it'd be fun to animate as well. But, you know, other character design features of Legends of Runeterra bothers me a little bit. Here's a pokey stick. It's a stick. You can poke things with it. And here we have truly the best boy, the absolute best boy of all boys, the boy whomst is the best of all the good boys that exist. this good boy, this lovely boy, this excellent boy right here who has just stepped on an exploding poison mushroom and is about to get everybody killed. Best boy, absolutely best boy. Wonderful lad, 10 out of 10, would pet, would adopt, would put in my home, would get exploded to death by poison mushrooms for him. Absolutely. Look at this lovely guy. Absolutely fantastic. So, same things apply. We have a character who's like raised on a little bit of a platform, sort of jutting out in this sort of creating this triangular pyramid shape right there for themselves to occupy. He's more highlighted, he's more saturated, he has more contrast, etc., etc. Same thing as everything else. And everyone here acts as essentially secondary characters. We have Ava Achiever, we have Furious Feyfolk, we have the big buff swole Yordle, we have the Yordle newbie guy, we'll get to him later, and we have these two Yordle day trippers who are not having a good time of it at all. Anyway, best boy, excellent lad, good kids, wonderful little pupper. I want to pet him. I want to pet him a lot. Is it okay that he looks exactly like dogs from our universe? Yes, because dogs are good. Dogs are fantastic, and if more things looked like dogs, the world would be a better place. Ooh, that's some warm tea. So, the Ruinous Acolyte. Yeah, I mean, I'm not super excited by this, because, like, the Ruinous Acolyte, the storytelling here is that he's just one among many, right? Like, he's there, he's doing his lightning thing with his staff or whatever, and then there's another one here, and then there's another one here, and, like, he's just one of many, so he's not really supposed to be that, or they are not really supposed to be that exciting on their own, as such, because they are just supposed to be a pawn or a peon or, like, a single sort of servant. There's some cool stuff going on. Like, I kind of like the helmets that they're wearing with, like, with the little spikes on. It kind of looks nice and ominous and sinister. Cool robes. I like the sort of emerging light from below. They're nice character designs. They're just, like, I wouldn't call them that exciting. Like, they just look like a second-rate, normal-ass Magic card, basically, in sort of the way that they're put together. A little bit of composition. Like, you can see the swoop of this obelisk or whatever in the background kind of follows the same, like, creates this same sense of power being sent or drawn towards the central pillar in the background, which also, like, corresponds with what the Acolyte themselves are doing. But yeah, not much to say about it. I really do like this spell card, though. Like this Salt and Stitches one, where you can see Eslanger, like, injecting his blood magic into the wound of a dead guy. And you can, like, the way that they use the glasses, like the big red glasses, to reflect the light of the magic that he's doing, giving him these blood red eyes. As he's, like, just sitting there, like sort of almost sort of lovingly doing his thing. But, like, hiding the eyes like that makes him feel inhuman and kind of scary. It's like quite good. Heading on over to Piltover and Zaun, here is the Sting Officer. Sane Asako, like all Sawnite kids, had to grow up fast in those violent and dark understreets. After losing his brother to yet another senseless gang crime, he committed himself to the Piltover enforcement, hoping reason and law would make his home finally safe. So this dude is essentially a sort of Piltover enforcer's insider who grew up on the streets of Zaun and who knows how to like track them and how to interact with them and find things and, like, report information back to Caitlin. So he's basically supposed to be this undercover officer kind of character. But the main thing about this guy, besides the excellent shirt and the anatomy, is the tattoos, which are really genuinely very cool. Like, this is a really cool design element on him. Like, having these tattoos that clearly, like, swoop their way all up across his body and then, like, cut his face in half like this. Sort of, like, basically sort of almost merging with his hairline as they rise up here. Like, it's very well executed. Like, it's a really cool bit of visual design. It makes him stand out a hell of a lot. I like the color composition as well. Like, I like the idea of, like, the white shirt then combined with this golden tie, which has, like, the same golden color as these gold accents that run across, like, his prosthetic and, like, his shoulder guard and, like, down into this. Like, there's a lot of good color coordination in his outfit in general. That works really well. And just because he has this bright white shirt, like, that just makes him stand out naturally in the Sawnite environment as well, which is, like, just, it works really well. It's just really well put together as he's sitting here spinning this thing around that he's presumably going to throw at these two luckless idiots who are running around here. And if you pay attention, these two guys, you'll find them in the card art of the Sawnite Barkeep as well. So, like, these are characters that appear in the background of other Legends of Runeterra cards as well. But yeah, just over, and these barrels, by the way, of course, contain the same, have the same emblem and contain the same liquid as those exploding barrels that do damage to both players that you get, like the Sawnite Kim barrel salesman guy who summons a couple of those. Same thing. Like, it's the same thing. So, stone stackers. Yordles haven't quite figured out gravity yet, but then gravity hasn't quite figured out Bandle City either. And yeah, there's some prehistoric Yordles, and like, that's motherfucking Godzilla in the background. That's fucking Godzilla. Like, not quite. Like, he's slightly different. He's got, but that's Godzilla. That's a fucking Godzilla here. There's a kaiju. There's a kaiju who's so big that trees grow on his goddamn tail. Oh, no, wait, that's not his tail. Doesn't matter. He's just big. There's a kaiju. There's a kaiju are canon now. There's a kaiju. I just wanted to point that out, that in League of Legends, kaiju are now canon. So we could have Godzilla attacking Demacia. That's a thing we could have, and Riot hasn't given it to us, which I think is a fucking outrage. We could have Godzilla attacking Demacia. We could have Godzilla attacking Noxus. And we have kaiju. Motherfucker, we have kaiju. Anyway, I just want to point that out. I want kaiju. I fucking want kaiju. What were we doing? Right, the card art, the art itself. So, a classic thing. Runeterra Stone Age was a wild time. Yeah. So a classic thing when you want to create a scene of characters hiding from, or being being protected from another character that's in an image. Let me bring up the classic example. Legends of Runeterra has a fantastic example of this. In Lux. No, wait. Mage Seeker. In this card, the Mage Seeker Investigator, right? Like, the Mage Seeker Investigator is looking for mages. Lux is a mage. Lux is hiding from the Mage Seeker. How do we represent this visually in the frame? Well, we put a literal wall between them. Like, we create this physical separation between them to sort of indicate the idea that one is hiding from the other and one is hidden from the other. That's a classic compositional trick to do this. So for the Stone Stackers, same thing. These little guys here are not trying to fight Godzilla over here. That's this guy up here who's throwing rocks at his head, which is a smart thing to do. They're hiding from him, right? But they're also protected from him. They are not directly in peril from Godzilla hanging out back here. So they're being protected by this little wall. This little wall creates this separation of space between them. And not necessarily that it would be any use. Like, if this thing punched the wall would probably be destroyed. But compositionally, this creates the feeling of, okay, these characters are in relative safety, right? This character is exposed. Like, you can see there's nothing between them and the kaiju in the background. This character is exposed. They are a little bit more at risk, but these guys are safe. And it also separates them visually from the other characters in the image, like the one down here pulling a rock out of the wall here, the one up there doing that thing, and the kaiju. So they become this little trio of triangularly stacked rock stackers, Yordles. So separate from what's happening in the action, but still a part of the narrative that's going on, with that little bit of protection, like visually separating them from the rest of what's going on. Okay. Tea. It's very warm. Braum would become friends with the kaiju. Oh yeah, he'd adopt it as a pet immediately. So yeah, compositionally that works quite well. Again, character designs, like, I just don't like... I'm just not much fond of character designs that depict, like, prehistoric peoples as, like, goofy or cartoony in the way that they're put together. Like, because, like, it's not that hard to sew a shirt. Like, it's genuinely, if you have the capacity to make leather, it's not that hard to make a proper shirt out of it, like with sleeves and shit. And so, like, when you see these prehistoric characters that are just, like, loincloths of, like, barely treated whatever, it's this guy hanging on, is like, they would make clothes, you know? Like, we've made clothes since the Stone Age. It's like, we can make clothes, like pants and shoes and shirts and shit. We know how to do it. So, like, again, that's my historian brain. coming in from my university days and saying, actually, that's not historically accurate to what the... Like, I know, but it's just a character design thing. Like, I don't like those tropes. They annoy me a little bit. But that's about all I really have for feedback. I'm excited to see Nar. Like, I'm really excited to see Nar coming in. I wonder if he's going to be a pure Bandle City character. Because, like, most of the prehistoric Yordles are, like, pure Bandle City, right? Or is it only the Stone Stackers? Wait, hang on. No, that one's a Freljord. Yeah, so maybe Nar's gonna be a Freljord Yordle. That would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah, not much to say about that one. That's just the control he's getting. Here's one of here's another one of Vengars' minions. So this one is a little bit confusing. Well, rather, it was confusing for me for a while. Like as I was trying to look at it and figure out what the hell is going on here. What's the action here even supposed to be? But basically, this dude is turning this little frog creature or whatever. As far as I can tell, either transforming the owl cat into the frog creature, or transforming the frog creature into an owl cat. It's one or the other, and I can't tell which it is. Because, like, it's not like his power does that. It's not like his power transforms anything into anything else. So, it's like, I'm not 100% sure what exactly is happening. Because the little thing is screaming, I have to imagine it is being turned into an owl cat, and that's the thing. And because this is, like, a bunch of other monsters in the scene, but only one other owl cat, so probably. But I don't know, like... I genuinely don't really know how to parse this guy's character design very well, because he's got this hat, and then this hat has these horns on it, and then from inside those horns, this dark transformation power comes out. But it's this big hat, and this little guy with his angry eyebrows and his metal armor. I just don't really know how to parse this guy. Like, I don't really know what the concept of his character design is, like with this menagerie in the background. I don't know how to parse him, especially as part of, like, Vengars' entourage of minions, because usually with Vengars' minions, the other ones, like, we have the wizened wizard here. Like, he's much more clear in what his concept is. Like, he's the guy who's sitting around scribing things into books, doing, like, magical stuff of Vengars. We have the, like, the stilted robe maker, who is basically the person in charge of making cool villain costumes for Vengars, who has that same transforming power, like, that same magic as the catalyzer guy is using coming out. But in terms of, like, being an archetypal, like, villain character, I just don't know how to parse him. Like, I can't place him as an archetype. Like, what's he supposed to be, the intellectual smart one with the big brain? I guess, sort of, with that very large hat he has on his head, but then he does transformation magic to the thing, but then his actual power is just to make darkness have more power, so he's like, what, a power battery? I don't know. He's just kind of weird and not really very well placed in the aesthetics of Vengars and his minions, I think. But anyway, yeah, he's in the level 2 Vengars art. It's just, But yeah, framing, you can see a very clear frame, like the helmet itself, along with the tendrils of magic, then the owl cat transforming. You can see we create this little space right here, where you have this guy in the foreground being the most saturated, etc., and then the monsters in the background being terrified by what he's doing to this thing over here. But yeah, I just can't really, I don't really vibe with this one very well, because I don't think it's aesthetically storytelling very good. Then we have this guy, and I'm reasonably sure that's Poppy's dad. I'm reasonably sure. I am reasonably sure that that's Poppy's dad. It's not 100% confirmed, but if you look at his armor, like the way that it's put together, the way that it's designed, a lot of the same aesthetics as Poppy. He seems to be able to make hammers. He's a forge master, and there's this thing, Poppy never listens to me, so you better. It's not about the hammer, it's about the yordle who swings it. Like, he seems to be giving Poppy sort of fatherly advice. And, like, it seems like he's supposed to be Poppy's dad? Also, but he also has this father relationship with Peppy, which implies that Peppy is Poppy's younger sister, except she's probably not. It's It's not 100% clear. Yeah, Poppy, that's the other thing, as Publius Naso points out in chat. Because the thing is, Poppy, in her original lore, way back in the day, she was the daughter of a blacksmith. Like, that was very much a big part of her story, is she's the daughter of a blacksmith, that's why she has this suit of armor. And so, same color, more or less, as Poppy. Same hair color, very similar armor sets. Does blacksmithing. It's like, oh, seems like might be Poppy's dad. Peppy could be Poppy's niece. Yeah, like, we don't know what the family relationships are exactly. And the little tooth, the same as Poppy's. Yes. Snaggletooth. So, yeah, it's not 100% clear. Like, he might be Poppy's dad, for all we know. But, anyway, compositionally, a little bit of depth of field going on here. Rather than painting things more roughly, we've just applied an actual Gaussian blur filter to the background here, which helps highlight the central characters in the image over here. And, like, I like the visual relationship between the two of them, like, with him presenting her with his hammer. Like, giving her, like, you look up to Poppy so much, I'm gonna make you this hammer out of wood, so that you can, like, pretend to be the same as your big hero. According to Twitter rioters, Yordles don't have biological families, they aren't born from parents. Yeah. That's probably the simpler way to do that. Like, no biological family, but just people adopt each other and stuff like that. Yeah. Makes sense. I can work with that. What was I saying? Right, compositionally. So, like, they're just highlighted by being in focus, whereas pretty much everything else in the scene isn't. They are sitting on this bench, which creates this little sort of visual sort of separation of characters from the background. And I just like the energy between them. Like, I like the sort of pleasant fatherly energy with which he's presenting this thing to her. And, like, the big, wide-eyed kid on Christmas morning thing, looking at the thing that she's been gifted. Absolutely lovely. Speaking of characters, here's another one. The Arena Kingpin. Talk about a character design, huh? There's a character and a half. And what I really like about this guy is that, like, these bodyguards he has, these swole yordles, these cursed swole yordles, they seem to be like his brothers or something. Like, they all have the same hairdo. They all have, like, they all also have mustaches. They all have more or less the same head shape. Same fur colors. Like, it seems to be like a family business kind of thing that they're doing. With the Arena Kingpin sitting there with, like, the gold tooth and the monocle. Like, he's such a caricature, but it's so good. And I like, you can see the henchmen yordles, they have this tattoo around their eyes. Same as the monocle that he has around his, which is, like, fantastic. He's the arena bookie, too. No, I don't. Is he? Are they the same guy? I don't think they are. I'm pretty sure they're not. Like, they look similar, but... Well, I guess this guy just has his mustache is just grown, I guess? I feel like their fur color is different, though. But yeah, there's a lot of shared design elements. Like, they both have the collar. They both have... Yeah, I guess the Arena Kingpin would be the Arena Bookie, but just later in life. Older. Maybe his dad... Again, maybe they're related somehow. That was a 4 cost, right? Where are you? 3 cost? There you are. But yeah, he's just sitting there, like, again, highlighted by literal highlights. Like, there's literally just the light falling on him. That doesn't really... Like, you can see the light just falls a little bit on the brim of the cap of the sort of supplicating dude in the background who's giving him this document or whatever. He's just literally just highlighted by sunlight, by direct light from above. Centering him as the main character. And then every other character is placed around him. Like, you can see how they sort of form this band around where he's positioned specifically, and he's in front of everyone. He's like the foremost character in the image. Hence, there we go. Then we have the babbling Balladiers. And I quite like this one because, as far as I understand from the storytelling here, like, they're singing a song. This is a song about Poppy the Strong, Poppy the Mightiest, Frightiest, Sprung. Scratched out lyrics from the songbook of Reginald Dactyl and Faltemisque, bards extraordinaire. So they're singing a big song about what a hero Poppy is, and she's just sitting there being really embarrassed by it. It's like, oh, come on, I'm not a hero. Like, leave me alone. Which I just think is quite adorable, frankly. Oh, this is a super chat. Why is the fish thigh gap the child one? I don't know. What would you say is your favorite card from the new expansion design-wise? I mean, I'm sorry, unknown guy, but like when people ask me to pick favorites, I can never do it. I'm terrible at it. I don't know how to pick favorites. I just don't, because things are good for different reasons. So, sorry, I've talked about a lot of the ones I like. That's the best I can do for you, I'm afraid. Anyway, like, Poppy just sitting there being embarrassed by it all. Like, just like, oh my god, you guys, jeez. Like, holding her hair in front of her ears, like, sort of trying to cover her face. It's very, very, very adorable. And these two dudes just being super, like, don't care that they're embarrassing her because they want to sing her a cool song about how cool she is. Which I think is, like, it's a cute little relationship with the bards. It's, like, just how enthusiastic they are about their craft. And the little, yeah, as Apple of Doom points out in chat, the owl cat bird here just applauding her as well, which is also very cute. The light here, by the way, is fantastic. Like, so we have this, you can see again how the light is used to create contrast in the characters, and Poppy, she's a little washed out by the light. Like, you can see that the light makes her colors a little bit more pale and sort of washes her out a little bit with this bright yellow, but the bards, even though the sunlight is hitting them the same way, they don't get washed out nearly as much, which gives them that greater sense of contrast, just a little bit more, which makes them a little bit more prominent as characters in the image than Poppy herself. So, like, even though there's a champion in the image, these two can be the main character of the interaction. And then we have Bandle's City Mayor. We have Tristana and Timo here in the foreground, just listening to his big speech. And the mayor himself, who's like a fantastic character design, isn't he? Like, he's just adorable. With his giant, enormous, like, miles-long mustache that needs two servants to carry it on either side. And, like, his big, fancy overcoat, and then that completely dopey face. Like, just saying, oh, yes, I'm the mayor of the Bandle City. I can't believe I had a speech. Like, he really has that energy all over the place with the big hat. And, like, the golden rings and, like, all the finery and shit. Like, that's all over. I am this Bandle City mayor. Like, he really does give off that general feeling of, like, yeah, he's the mayor, but, like, he's not in charge of anything. People just, like, he gets a big hat, and he gets to make speeches, and that's about, like, everyone else just gets on with their day. Which I just think is absolutely lovely. He's just a good character design. I like him a lot. Oh, right, composition. Again, he's on a pedestal. He's above all the other characters. Like, he's very bright. Here you can really tell, like, the thing about, like, contrast and brightness. He has all these bright, saturated, highly saturated colors against this very pale background. And again, that's what makes him stand out. And he's more saturated than any of the other characters in the frame, etc. We've spoken about these things already. Here's another character I quite like, the Bandle City Painter. I need to stop taking... I start a sentence, and then I take a sip of tea, for some fucking reason, and then I go and talk. And so the most prominent, cool, like, design feature of this Bandle City Painter is that her hair is brushes. Like, it's basically her... Like, it's... Either she has paintbrushes, like, stuck in her hairband, which I think is what's going on, but it also sort of vaguely implies that her hair is tied up in such a way that it looks like a paintbrush itself. And as you can see, like, the ponytail that she's got coming down here, she has used that as a paintbrush. Like, you can see it's been dipped in paint in order to put paint on the canvas. And I just kind of... She's just such a hippy-dippy sort of painter type. Like, she's wearing this long shirt and no pants. Like, there is just this wonderful hippy-dippy painterly, like, I just like expressing myself with paint on the canvas kind of energy. It's just lovely. this is a wonderful character design. Like, and it's so on the nose. Like, it's such a Pokemon character design thing of like, oh, we have a character that's supposed to be a painter. Let's just put paintbrushes for hair, which is kind of similar to what's it called? That one Pokemon that's also a painter, and it has like a beret, and like its tail is a paintbrush. Like, it's that level of completely unsubtle, but I really like it. Like, it's like, because it doesn't need to be subtle. These are Yordles. They're not subtle creatures. They're silly. They're fun. And then we have the lovely little cat stool, like this little stool with like paint cans hanging off it and everything, that is also apparently animated and alive and is a cat, which is a lovely thing. Yeah, Smeargle, yeah. Now, the thing I do wonder about is who is the Yordle here in the background, because I can't remember seeing him in any of the other cards yet, but he has all these trophies in front of him, which sort of implies to me that he's going to be some sort of important Yordle champion. Like, not a champion, but like he's going to be the champion of Yordle stuff. He's going to be like the arena champion for the Yordlers or something. Yeah, the Yordle is being painted, I know, but what I'm wondering is who is this guy? Like, because we haven't seen him elsewhere in the cards yet, so I assume he's going to be showing up with one of the expansions at some point. But yeah, again, framing and aesthetic, we have, like, the big window in the background, again, creates that washed-out, desaturated backdrop against which the main character can then be framed, like, as being much more in focus and being much more highly contrasted. No, it's LeBlanc. Yeah, of course it's LeBlanc. And so all the things we've talked about before, like saturation, about highlights, about focus, about contrast, all of that applies to this character as well, and to her canvas as well, which is sort of a secondary part of her character, which I think is quite lovely. Then we get back to the Light Sentinels, and again, it's like, wow, these are a whole bunch of cool character designs. Sure would have been nice to have an event about them or something, like to be told their stories and the stuff, like just to, like, that would have been cool if we got to actually see them and interact with them and hear their stories and not just pass over them for 2 seconds because they're NPCs in a story that's not really going to explore anyone's characterization very much, except maybe Lucian and Senna. That would have been cool. Wow. I mean, imagine how amazing that would be. Like, just to have a whole event about the Sentinels of Light, and like them sort of like doing their thing. We call it something like the rise of the Sentinels. That would be cool. I wish Riot would put on an event like that. That would be great. Like, just, could you imagine how cool it would be if we had like a visual novel about these? That would be great. It's such a pity that hasn't happened. It's just, I'm just trying to cope, guys. I'm just trying to cope. I'll make that video at some point. Anyway, the Bahuru Sentinel, or the Buru Sentinel, is the central character here. And the simple way to make that happen is just to have him be in front. Like, he's just in front of everyone else. He's just, like, the only character who's completely uncovered, except by the boat. And then everyone else is sort of, like, aligned around him. So he just looks like this dude with his 3 girlfriends sailing off to do some undead fighting, which looks quite cool. I quite like the boats. Like, I quite like using the boat as a frame, right? Like, we talk so much about framing, and here you can see, like, literally it's just the boat is just doing the job of creating the frame for the character to occupy. And that works really well, because, like, it means, like, unlike something like the Poppy level 2 art, where we talked about, like, the wings of the monster taking up so much space, but not doing anything for the storytelling of the image, instead we get little things over here. Like, we have the other boats. Like, we can see that there's multiple boats that they're sailing in, like, some sort of a fleet towards the Shadow Isles, but then you also get this ominous green glow from, like, deep below the water, where you can see, like, this edge lighting coming up on the spear that's hanging off the side of the boat. So, like, there's a little bit of environmental storytelling going on for the Sentinels there, and for, like, where they're journeying to. Where they're journeying to somewhere where the water glows green for some reason, so it's probably bad. Dun, dun, dun. So, here we have these guys again. We've seen them before. They were milling around in Serath's level 3 art. They've been sort of around in Serath-related art before. These are the Endless Devouts. And what they seem to be are just like these crackling lightning elementals that are occupying these mummy forms, these shapes or whatever. And there's some cool things going on. Like, I quite like the idea of them having like this hat with the eyes on that sort of gives them a face, and then these bandages sort of just hanging down like this curtain of hair around their head. Like, that's a really cool way to create a character out of them. Outside of that, I don't know, they're not that interesting. Like, I can see that they're doing a thing with chains. Like, that Serath is associated with chains because he's, like, bound in chains, and he's, like, the guy who tried to break free of his chains, that kind of thing. But it's just, like, I don't know. I don't think that these guys sort of meaningfully interact with Serath's themes that much. Like, they're just sort of like, oh, lightning creatures that serve Serath kind of thing. Where I feel like the character design could go a lot harder on any of the themes of who he is. Serath is in the background fully bound. Is that... Well, I'm not sure that that's Serath bound. I'm not sure that that's what that is. I think this is Serath's lair. I don't... Like, this isn't the tomb where Serath was sealed. I think this is a lair that Serath has built because because in the tomb where Serath was sealed, it was just him and Renekton. And it was the tomb of the Emperors, which is the same place that Azir was trapped. So I don't think this is Serath's coffin, and I don't think this is like him being fully bound before breaking free. I think this is a lair. Like, I think this is like Serath's palace or whatever. Because like this seems more... Like, the Tomb of the Emperors is no less lavish for serving as Serath's prison. Indeed, the beauty of the place and its trappings are nothing if not a reminder of the inhabitants' fall from grace, a gilded prison. Like, this looks more like Serath being bound by something or other. Isn't that in the background Serath's eyes? You mean this thing? Yeah, I mean, storytelling-wise, it wouldn't make sense to me that if this was the Tomb of the Emperors. Like, storytelling-wise, this wouldn't make sense to me. Like, that's weird that Serath would have minions in the Tomb of the Emperor, or, like, being able to... Like, where would he get... Like, I don't know. That doesn't really make sense to me. I think this is something that Serath built, rather than anything else. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're doing. So, insider knowledge. This one's mostly notable just because it has Karina's hand. Like, this is seen from Karina's perspective as she's looking at some documents of the Piltover Enforcers and gaining insight knowledge. This is a popular case, you know. Just had a chap in here earlier looking at it today. Enjoy! As the station archivist hands over the information to Karina, who is looking at it and, like, sort of recording insider information for herself to use in her plans. Serath's new army would make better use of the Tomb of many artifacts, turning useless extravagance into a powerful conduit for the Ascendant's magic. So the idea here, being that he has taken over the Tomb of the Emperors and using it as a base? Yeah, I mean, maybe, but that right there would still not be Serath's coffin. Like, it wouldn't be. That wouldn't make any sense with the story as we know it. So, okay, I guess Serath has taken over the Tomb of the Emperors and he's using it to do Serath stuff? Yeah, I suppose. So, here we have an old friend. This is the Golden Narwhal, or what's it called? It's not called a narwhal, it's called, let's see, it's a hunting fleet that does it. Where the hell is it? Oh, it's the Rising Tide. Yeah, it is the Golden Narwhal. That's what it's called. The hunting fleet is hunting the Golden Narwhal down here, which is this poor creature right there. The elusive with vulnerable, which is such a useless combination. And what we get in the new artwork is a scene of the thing having actually escaped and now being helped by the Journeying Sandhopper, who are like, it's been trapped in these nets. And then the Journeying Sandhopper and its friend is basically helping break it out of those nets so it can escape. Yeah, Rising Tides. Yes, thank you, chat. I forgot that it was introduced in Rising Tides. And here's another good mermaid design, because, like, a lot of him is, like, pretty basic, right? Like, he's got the mermaid tail with the fish scales and stuff. And then, if you look at his head, and I wish I could zoom in, but, like, the head has this mantle of, like, coral-like fins just bursting out from the side, giving him this, like, very strange head shape. He's got these completely black eyes with no whites. Is that Nami? Are you sure? Because that doesn't look like her staff. To me. It could be. Yeah, it could be Nami, but, like, that just doesn't look like her staff. But, yeah, and he's got the 4 arms. Like, he looks a lot more monstrous than mermaids and merpeople typically do. Yeah, the crown, again, like, I'm pretty sure that's just a Mirai, like, a Mirai, wearing headgear that's similar to Nami's. Like, I'm not sure that that's Nami. But yeah, like, he's just a cool, because he's got the 4 arms, he looks more monstrous, he looks more weird, and he's got this long ass, like, golden mane of hair, like, flowing around him all over the place. Like, he's just a fantastic little character design. Very interesting. Like, again, this thing of doing unique things with mer creatures, instead of just having, like, human with fishtail, let's have human with fishtail and a bunch of other stuff on top of it as well. Which I think is quite nice. So, framing. Here's an interesting thing. The golden narwhal itself acts as the frame for the image. You can see how, like, it creates this separating line that runs through the splash art, or through the artwork. And within that sort of creates, like, the frame for the characters to occupy, with the narwhal being part of being one character, and then this guy and this character being the secondary characters, sort of occupying the space. And this just very well put together. Like, it's a clever way to use the fact that you have a huge character in the screen, is to simply use them as a frame to highlight other characters that are also doing stuff. He has 4 arms like a fish. No, he has 4 arms like a crustacean. He's got, like, many sea creatures have multiple limbs, you know, like crustaceans, crabs, any kind of thing. Like, using the fact that they are not human, like, instead of just making them normal humans, give them some weird shit. Like, make some weird shit happen with them. So, not a ton to say about the Noble Rebel. It's just yet another one of like, the Grey Legion dead soldier people. Storyline seems to be that this character was, like, a Demacian spy in Noxus, and they killed her, and then they brought her back to life and sent her against the Demacians as a soldier, like, as a shock trooper, to demoralize the people in the Demacian garrison when they saw their own former companion coming at them with a weapon, kind of thing. That seems to be the storyline. Compositionally, not a lot to say. Like, you can see how the banner, like, the background here, a little bit of a frame there, not very much, but she's framed against, again, the thing that they always do when they're doing city scenes. You have buildings on the left, you have buildings on the right, you have no buildings overlapping with the background of the character, so that they can be framed against basically these flat color spaces of just cloud, gray, a little bit of orange, in order to sort of highlight the character themselves as the center of attention. Here we get a good look at how Caitlyn's Piltover Peacemaker works. I'm not I don't know how how that gun launches that thing, but here, I guess, is a better look at what it theoretically looks like. Is this sort of mechanical Hextech contraption thing that she fires from her gun. So that's neat that we have a better look at it now, I guess. And here we have the Pompous Cavalier. 988, 999, 1,000. There we are, Borky. You look as impeccable as ever. Okay, now do mine. And the idea here being apparently that he's been brushing his big chicken mount's hair to give it a nice pompadour, and not paying attention to the fact that he's got a giant razor beak coming at him right now. Maybe you attach it before firing. Yeah, it seems like that kind of thing. But yeah, say hello to the Pompous Cavalier, one of Poppy's followers, a very silly man, who seems to be basically Poppy's version of, what the hell is he called? Nope, it's not him. Oh, Duelist. Nope. Darn. Ugh. It's Poppy's version of this guy, basically. Like, it's basically this guy again. Like, this dude, this, like, pompous, self-assured idiot, incompetent moron dude. But just Poppy's version of him with this guy who has these grand aspirations to be a cavalier, and he has his own squire, and has all this fancy gear, and he has this big chicken mount, and then, like, the moment the monster actually shows up, he gets he gets thrown off because his chicken runs off, which is one of the spells, has the artwork for that. Yeah, stress defense. His chicken throws him off and runs away, and he cowers behind a tree while Poppy kicks the ass of the big bird monster. Yeah, Laurent Chevalier, something like that. Laurent something something. And again, like nothing we haven't talked about before. Saturation, contrast, the background characters are a little bit more washed out, and that's sort of what centers them in the image. I love this melody so much. There we go. Anyway, here's something interesting, lore-wise, something quite fascinating. In fact, this is a Solari Sentinel. This is one of the Sentinels of Light from Targon, who seems to be doing something to Ledros. And what I can't help but wonder is because, so the storytelling of the new Sentinel cards and of like Senna leading them to the Shadow Isles to do a thing is that apparently like Senna has the ability to free cursed spirits from the Black Mist, like to free them from their torment, to like set them free as spirits to go to the afterlife or do whatever they want. And so the thing I can't help but wonder is whether or not maybe what the Solari Sentinel is doing here is casting some sort of spell or magic on Ledros' head. And the thing is, Ledros, like everyone else, he is mind-controlled by the Black Mist. Like, he's trapped there. And he's like one of the closest of the big Shadow Isles monsters to having his own mind back. Like, he's the closest one to having free will. He doesn't quite have it, but he's the closest one to having it. And I wonder if this is a prelude, like if what we're being shown here is that this Sentinel of Light frees Ledros' mind somehow, so that he can actually be free to become a new card in the game that can do something else. Like that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. Ledros' helmet also looks very Solari-ish. Yeah, well, no. Ledros is from Camavor. He's one of Viego's soldiers. He's the lover of Callista. He's Callista's former lover, who died alongside her, and he's been trying to free her. For a long, long time, he's been trying to help her escape from the Black Mist, and no longer be controlled by vengeance, and he has failed many, 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 many times. This is the past? Yeah. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if this is like a past thing where Senna led the Sentinels to the Shadow Isles in the past or whatever, but I kind of hope that this is an indication that Ledros is going to undergo some sort of transformation. Because I want my boy to like have some more time with Callista. Like, Ledros and Callista's story is great. I love it. I love it a lot. Anyway, not a lot to say about the composition. There's really only two characters on screen, and there's very little background or anything else going on. So the main feature is really just like this bright light that she's sending with a little halo of a rainbow, which I think is quite nice, that she's sending into his head, doing this like this very intent expression as she's trying to something on Ledros. Unbound Ledros incoming. Yeah, I mean, that's the worst case scenario, but since he's not a champion, I don't think they're gonna bother ruining him. Which is like, and so the color contrast here is the big story, because like Ledros and everything on the shadow is like just green and teal and like ghostly and like black and rrr. So like we have these black, we have this teal, we have like all of this green, and then the Sentinel herself is like, she has like this dark brown skin, And she has like these golden colors and this bright white cloak that contrasts so beautifully against all the green. Like, I just love the color combinations here. Like, she's so gorgeous, especially against all of this.